Have you ever met someone for the first time and felt like you already knew them? Not in a logical, factual sense, but something deeper, as if your soul whispered, "Pay attention. This person means something." Your heart races. Your mind goes quiet. And even though you've never exchanged a word, something inside you stirs, a sense of familiarity, excitement, even danger. This is instant attraction. And it defies every rule of reason. It's not just about looks. It's not just chemistry. It feels like fate, like the universe arranged that meeting for a reason. But is it fate? Or is it something else? Carl Jung, one of the greatest minds in psychology, believed that what we call instant attraction isn't random. He saw it as a profound expression of the unconscious mind, a collision between our inner world and the outer person standing in front of us. To Jung, these moments are messages, symbols, clues. They reveal not just who you're drawn to, but why. Why do we feel instantly connected to some people and completely indifferent to others? Why do we feel safe in the presence of strangers and sometimes terrified around those we love? Why does someone we just met feel like a missing piece of our soul? The answers don't lie in dating advice or surface-level psychology. They lie deep within Jung's ideas about the shadow, the anima and animus, and the collective unconscious concepts that unlock the hidden architecture of human attraction. In this video, we're going to unravel the mysteries of why you're drawn to certain people and what that attraction really means. You'll discover that what feels magical isn't always good for you, and what feels painful may be the key to your inner transformation. This isn't just about relationships. It's about awakening to the hidden forces shaping your life and using them to become whole. Let's begin. So, what exactly is this feeling that takes over in a split second? Instant attraction is one of the most misunderstood human experiences. Most people think it's about lust, good looks, or body language, but deep down, it's more than that. It's not just a response to physical beauty or personality. It's as if your inner world suddenly reacts before your conscious mind can catch up. You don't decide it. It happens to you. From a scientific perspective, we're told it's due to evolutionary factors that we're subconsciously looking for strong genes, symmetrical faces, fertility cues, or maybe it's the way someone walks, their scent, the tone of their voice. These things do influence attraction. But none of that explains why you can feel nothing for someone perfect on paper, yet feel pulled like gravity to someone who makes no rational sense. Carl Jung offers a deeper lens. According to Jung, what we call instant attraction is often your unconscious mind responding to something that person represents. That's the key word, represents. Not is. This person is not just a person. They are a symbol, a mirror, a projection screen. Your unconscious sees them and whispers, "That's the one. That's the shape of something I've lost. That's what I've denied. That's what I want to reclaim." In this way, attraction is never just about the other person. It's a map pointing directly to your own internal landscape, to the parts of yourself that are repressed, missing, wounded, or deeply desired. That's why it can feel like destiny and sometimes like danger. Because you're not just meeting them, you're meeting yourself through them. And most people don't realize it. In the next section, we'll explore how this all begins, how your unconscious mind silently shapes your relationships without you even knowing. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That quote is not just poetic. It's terrifyingly accurate, especially when it comes to attraction. Most people assume that their preferences, desires, and relationships are conscious choices. You believe you're in control of who you're drawn to. But Jung challenges that illusion. He believed the unconscious, the hidden part of your psyche, plays a far more powerful role than you realize. The unconscious is everything about you that you don't fully see. It's your repressed desires, your childhood wounds, your unmet needs, your dreams, your fears, all bundled together in the background of your mind. And when you meet someone, especially someone who triggers deep attraction, it's often your unconscious speaking before your conscious mind even reacts. Think of it like this. Your conscious mind is the tip of the iceberg, but your attraction is being driven by everything underneath the surface, your inner blueprint, for instance. Imagine you had a parent who was emotionally distant. That wound may remain buried in your unconscious. Then one day you meet someone who is calm, mysterious, hard to read, and suddenly you're obsessed. They awaken something. You call it chemistry, but Jung would call it projection. Your unconscious is using this person as a canvas to work out unresolved emotional patterns. You're not attracted to them purely for who they are. You're drawn to what they activate in you. This is why we often chase people who are bad for us, or who remind us of someone we've tried to forget. It's not random. It's unfinished business, but here's the paradox. The very same unconscious also contains the tools for healing. If you can become aware of why you're attracted to certain people, what part of your unconscious they reflect, you gain power. You move from being controlled by your attractions to understanding them, from blind obsession to conscious transformation. Instant attraction, then, is not just a feeling, it's a flashlight. A signal that your inner world is speaking, but it speaks in symbols, not words. And to understand those symbols, we need to talk about Jung's most powerful psychological framework, archetypes. Let's explore that in the next section. To truly understand why you're instantly drawn to certain people, you need to understand what Jung called archetypes, ancient, universal patterns of human thought and behavior that live within all of us. Archetypes aren't something you choose. They aren't created by your personal experiences. They're inherited, embedded, deep in your psyche, passed down through the collective unconscious. They are the symbolic roles humanity has played over and over again throughout time: the mother, the hero, the trickster, the lover, the wise old man, the innocent child. And whether you realize it or not, you are unconsciously living through these patterns and projecting them onto the people around you. When you meet someone who embodies an archetype you unconsciously long for or lack, that's when instant attraction hits like lightning. It's not just who they are. It's what they represent. For example, a woman might be instantly drawn to a quiet, brooding man who exudes mystery and power, not because of his personality, but because he unconsciously mirrors the shadow or the hero archetype she's never explored within herself. A man may feel pulled toward a nurturing, gentle woman because she embodies the mother archetype that comforts the vulnerable child still hidden within him. Someone might feel obsessed with a person who is wild, unpredictable, and emotionally unavailable because they represent the trickster or the anima in its chaotic form. These people light up something in you that feels larger than life, almost mythic. And that's because it is. You're not just attracted to a person. You're attracted to an energy pattern that has been alive in the human psyche for thousands of years. And when that energy pattern meets a wound or need within you, it creates a magnetic pull, one that is powerful, irrational, and often beyond your control. That's why instant attraction can feel spiritual, karmic, or even dangerous. You're not falling in love with a person. You're falling into a story, one that your unconscious mind has been trying to complete. The danger, of course, is that these projections can blind you. You start to see a fantasy, not reality. And the deeper you're unconscious, the stronger the illusion becomes. So how do you know when you're caught in an archetypal trap? How do you separate what's real from what's projected? To answer that, we need to explore one of Jung's most famous concepts, the anima and animus, the inner masculine and feminine energies that shape your emotional destiny. Let's go there next. Carl. Jung believed that every person carries within them a hidden image of the opposite sex, a deeply unconscious figure that influences not only who we're attracted to, but how we love, how we suffer, and how we search for completion, he called this the anima in men and the animus in women, but don't confuse this with gender roles or surface-level traits. The anima and animus are not about men being feminine or women being masculine. They're symbolic representations of your inner opposite, the part of you that complements what you consciously identify with. For a man, the anima represents the unconscious feminine within: emotion, intuition, creativity, chaos, nurturing, seduction, feeling. She appears in dreams, fantasies, and romantic ideals. For a woman, the animus is the unconscious masculine logic. Authority, direction, independence, strength, reason. Why does this matter? Because your first experience of the opposite, your first template, is shaped by your early relationship with your parents. And unless those wounds are consciously explored and healed, your anima or animus remains immature, distorted, or wounded, and this wounded inner image projects itself onto the people you meet. This means when you experience instant attraction, you may not be falling in love with the actual person, but with the projection of your inner anima or animus. A man may feel consumed by a mysterious woman who reflects the depth, chaos, or tenderness he has buried within himself. She awakens his soul, but also his pain. A woman may become obsessed with a powerful, emotionally distant man who carries the authority or validation she craves, not knowing that he represents the animus image she formed long ago in response to her father or society. This explains why we often chase people who trigger both euphoria and suffering, because they aren't just romantic interests. They are the mirror of our unconscious. We see in them what we haven't yet owned in ourselves, but here's the danger. When your anima or animus is immature, it leads to fantasy-driven relationships, full of emotional chaos, unbalanced power, and idealization followed by collapse. You're not in love. You're possessed. Jung believed the solution wasn't to repress this energy, but to integrate it, to face the inner anima or animus, to develop a conscious relationship with the opposite within, to stop chasing it outside. When a man integrates his anima, he becomes emotionally mature, intuitive, and creative, no longer desperate for a woman to complete him. When a woman integrates her animus, she becomes assertive, grounded, and wise, no longer needing a man to give her purpose or protection. At that point, instant attraction shifts. You no longer fall for those who reflect your wound. You are drawn to those who reflect your wholeness. So, the next time you feel that lightning bolt of attraction, pause, ask yourself, is this love, or is this my unconscious searching for itself? In the next section, we'll talk about how the shadow self plays a massive role in who you feel drawn to, and how it can either destroy or heal your relationships. Carl Jung called it the shadow, the part of yourself you've repressed, denied, or cast away into the unconscious. It's everything you don't want to see in yourself. The anger, the jealousy, the selfishness, the lust, the fear, the shame. But here's the shocking truth. Sometimes the people you're most powerfully drawn to are not your soulmates. They're your shadow made visible. You don't fall for them because they're good for you. You fall for them because they embody what you've rejected in yourself. This is one of the most dangerous forms of attraction because it feels intoxicating, urgent, magnetic. You feel seen in ways you've never felt before. You sense passion, depth, even fate. But what's really happening is this: your shadow recognizes itself in the other person. Let's say you've always been the nice one, polite, agreeable, emotionally controlled. But deep down, you repress your rage, your sexuality, your ambition. Then you meet someone who is wild, unapologetic, intense, and suddenly you're obsessed. Why? Because they live out loud the parts of you that you've buried. You don't just want them, you want to reclaim yourself through them. And this is where the battlefield begins, because the shadow isn't gentle. It doesn't integrate easily. When you're attracted to someone who carries your shadow traits, the relationship becomes a mirror, and what you see isn't always pretty. You may feel extreme highs, but also extreme fear. You may feel alive, and yet completely out of control. This kind of attraction often leads to toxic cycles: passion followed by distance, desire followed by disgust, obsession followed by guilt. You find yourself asking, why do I keep going back to this person? Why do I feel powerless? Why does this hurt so much? Jung would answer, because you are not in a relationship with them. You are in a confrontation with your own unconscious. But here's the paradox. The shadow isn't evil. It holds your hidden power, your unclaimed energy, your creative fire. The goal is not to avoid shadow-based attraction. The goal is to become conscious of it, to recognize when you're projecting disowned parts of yourself onto another, and to use that awareness for integration. When you fall for someone who reflects your shadow, ask, what do they awaken in me that I've disowned? What part of me feels both scared and fascinated? Am I loving them, or trying to love a part of myself through them? Because here's the truth, the people who trigger your shadow aren't mistakes. They're teachers. They show you where your work is, where your power lies, where your freedom can begin. If you're willing to stop projecting and start integrating. In the next section, we'll explore what happens when this energy is fully unconscious and how projection distorts your reality, making it nearly impossible to see others as they truly are. Carl Jung warned us that the greatest enemy of love is not hate. It's projection. Projection happens when you unconsciously take parts of your inner world, your desires, wounds, hopes, fears, and cast them onto someone else. You stop seeing the person in front of you for who they truly are, and instead, you see your own story being played out on their face. You think you're falling in love with them, but in reality, you're falling in love with a fantasy. It's an illusion, and it's incredibly powerful. Let's say you meet someone quiet, emotionally distant, and intriguing. Your unconscious might project the idea that they're deep, wounded, or mysterious. You imagine they have hidden wisdom, that they understand your soul, that they'll heal something inside you, but maybe they're just emotionally unavailable. Maybe they're not deep, they're just disconnected. Maybe they're not mystical, they're avoidant. Still, you don't see it because your mind has already created a story. This story isn't innocent. It's often built from childhood wounds. The father who never saw you, the mother who withheld affection, the past partner who disappeared. Projection is the unconscious trying to resolve its old pain by recreating familiar dynamics, hoping this time it ends differently, but it rarely does. You end up disappointed, confused, even heartbroken, not because the other person betrayed you, but because they didn't live up to your fantasy. This is why projection is so dangerous. It turns people into symbols, not humans. And as long as you project, you cannot truly love, because love requires clarity, presence, and the ability to see someone as they really are. Jung said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But if you're projecting, only one of you is reacting, and it's not them. So how do you break the spell? You must reclaim your projections. When you feel intense attraction, ask, what qualities do I believe this person has? Are these traits I'm lacking or suppressing in myself? Am I idealizing them to fill a gap in me? The truth is, the people we idealize often represent what we've denied. The confident partner may mirror the self-worth you haven't yet embraced. The nurturing one may reflect the tenderness you've never given yourself. When you take your projection back, when you say, this is mine, not theirs, you gain power. You stop falling in love blindly. You start relating consciously, and here's the beautiful irony. Once you stop projecting, you finally get to experience real connection, not based on fantasy, but on truth. In the next section, we'll discuss how to use this self-awareness to build emotionally mature, conscious relationships where attraction doesn't destroy you, but transforms you. Carl Jung believed the true purpose of psychological development, what he called individuation, is to become whole. And nowhere is that tested more fiercely than in love, because love, especially in its early stages, has the power to completely undo you. It stirs up everything, your fantasies, your fears, your wounds, your longing for completion. You feel magnetically drawn to someone, and suddenly the world narrows. They become the answer, the mirror, the drug. But here's the paradox. The more you lose yourself in someone else, the more love becomes a form of possession, not liberation. True love, conscious love, can only exist between two whole individuals. People who don't need the other to feel complete, but who choose the other in clarity. Jung saw this as the alchemical process of transformation. Each partner becomes a container where unconscious material is brought to the surface. But the difference in conscious attraction is that you're aware of the process. You don't run from your projections. You work with them. You don't chase the other person to save you. You ask what your attraction reveals about you. This is where true inner strength is forged. In conscious relationships, you, Notice the intensity, but pause before acting on it. Reflect on whether your attraction stems from wounded parts of yourself. Ask, am I drawn to who they truly are, or who I imagine them to be? Allow space. You don't try to fuse into one being, but remain rooted in your own center. The healthiest relationships are not built on dependency, but on two individuals who have met their own shadow, claimed their inner anima animus, and reclaimed their projections. This doesn't mean love becomes cold or calculated. In fact, it becomes deeper, because you're no longer acting from desperation. You're acting from awareness. You can love fully without abandoning yourself. That's the ultimate test. Can you remain conscious even when your feelings are overwhelming? Can you stay rooted in your truth even when the other person triggers your wounds? Can you communicate without manipulation, receive without control, connect without collapsing? This is what Jung meant by individuation, not just becoming psychologically whole in isolation, but becoming whole in connection, in relationship, in love. And here's the most powerful truth. Once you've walked through your shadow, reclaimed your projections, and integrated your inner masculine or feminine, the people you are attracted to, change. You're no longer drawn to what wounds you. You're drawn to what mirrors your wholeness. The person who once made your heart race with chaos might no longer move you because you've met that energy within yourself. And the person who brings peace, depth, and presence, suddenly you see them with new eyes. That's conscious attraction. It doesn't enslave. It awakens, and in that space, love becomes what it was always meant to be, a sacred mirror, not of your lack, but of your light. So what does it all mean? Why are we so magnetically pulled to certain people, often without reason, without logic, without warning? Carl Jung would say, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is the truth behind instant attraction. It's not random. It's not just chemistry. It's a message. Attraction is your psyche's way of drawing attention to what is unseen in you. The qualities you admire, the emotions you suppress, the stories you haven't healed, the potential you haven't lived. The person you can't stop thinking about may not be the one. They may be a mirror, reflecting the deepest, most disowned parts of you. They awaken something because they carry your unconscious material. And here's the twist. It's never really about them. It's always about you. That electric pull, that intensity, that feeling of being hooked. That's your soul trying to get your attention, begging you to look within. Ask yourself, what do I feel when I'm around them? And why? Do I feel seen or do I feel addicted? Am I trying to find something in them that I've lost in myself? Attraction, when unconscious, can become a trap, an endless loop of projection, disappointment, and emotional chaos. But when conscious, attraction becomes a guide. It shows you where you are, UNHELED. It shows you what you long for, not in others, but in yourself. It shows you what kind of person you are ready to become. This is the great psychological invitation of Jungian work. 2. Stop chasing love as a drug to numb your pain, and to start using attraction as a compass for inner growth. So the next time you feel drawn to someone, don't just ask, why them? Ask, what are they showing me about me? Because the truth is, most of the time, you're not falling in love with a person. You're falling in love with a lost part of yourself, trying to come home. And the real journey, the Jungian path, is to bring that part back. To stop outsourcing your power, your love, your identity. And to become the kind of person who doesn't need someone else to feel whole, because you've already met the parts of you that were waiting in the dark. That's individuation. That's freedom. That's what Carl Jung was pointing toward all along. So, the next time you feel an intense pull toward someone, pause. Don't fall into the spell blindly. Use it. Study it. Let it teach you, because the strongest attraction you'll ever experience is the one that leads you back to yourself.